a graduated increase to that amount so that we can justify it to our citizens.
Comments, questions?
Well, off the bat, I would say no to the 3-year deal. So that's where I'm at off the bat.
Well, and again, the discussion is well, I get that Bingham County has a cost incurred. We have, not only are we hitting every parcel, we're talking about capitalization costs, we're talking about expansion, we're talking about airspace issues, we're talking about growth rates. And so we start looking at Bannock County, and then as our growth rate incurs and it starts going faster, we're start talking about capitalization rates are faster. So if we limit airspace or material, so what's that finite number? And this is the thing it really comes back to is I have a real hard time with Bannock County putting a lot of the bill for a lot of the entities. Now I don't mean just Bingham, I mean Chubbuck and Pocatello and ISU and everybody else. We seem to be the ones that everybody comes to and wants us to help them pay the bill. And I have a tendency to agree with Commissioner Huff on that I mean, we went to all the small cities in Bannock County and hey, we've addressed all of the sheriff's issues this year. I mean, it's not just we're not just picking on one entity. We're picking on everybody right now is what it seems like, but that's what we're looking at. And so that's what we have to justify back to the citizens then, is why should we give discounts? And you have to look at the opportunity cost of what it's going to cost us to accelerate expansion. I mean, Bingham County's not slowing down their growth rate. I think their growth rate was equal to or higher than Bannock County this year. And so, again, how much material are we talking? Do we have a tonnage limit? Do we have what happens if, in the next 2 years, Bingham County is at 8 or 10% growth? Everybody's like, oh, that'll never happen. Idaho Falls was at 17% this last year. That's what scares me is then we have contracts that we've signed into, and we're obligated, and we're still in remediation and cleanup, and we're still trying to clean up a problem that's going to cost us, $6 to $10 million over the next 4 years. Sure. And that's the problem that I look at. That's just on the surface.
Well, and you received the same letter from Kyle, saying what's going on up there at the landfill and stuff. And as we looked this over, if we do not receive your garbage, it extends each one of ourselves longer. And in the past, Bingham County our personnel or Bingham County residents have received a break. The Bannock County employees or personnel and we was paying more money in Bannock County than you were bringing it from Bingham County, and I just can't see how we as commissioners could ever justify that going on.
Well, and like I said, I don't mind having a conversation to help everybody out, but the conversation, it's got to be advantageous and beneficial for us. Because the big problem that we live with as well is it's just not the $45 a ton, it's the 30 or 40 years when the next guys are up on the wall over there that have to deal with remediation cleanup, and we hope that there's no problems or things that are there as well. And so, like I said, I don't mind doing it. I don't mind having an agreement, but it has to be beneficial financially to the county to not put our citizens as the one that if we have to have a capitalization effort, that we're not putting it on the blunt on their backs. I mean, that's I hate to say that, but that's just the way I look at it.
Well, and I totally understand that, and that's exactly what I'm doing as well for Bingham County. So that's why we're here. And the contract, the contract that we've signed in the past, if we've done something along the same lines, sure, it's been a 5-year contract, and that's not that large of a deal to us. The contract has been a 30-day out by either party, just upon written asking to be out. So it's not that it's necessarily a binding contract that's going to hold you to any certain amount for 5 years. So with that being said, if a 5-year contract isn't what you prefer, I had just brought that to the table because that's what we had done in the past. I don't know how that was negotiated in the past. So I had only brought the 5-year contract to the table because that's what we've been doing to this time. So that's definitely not a big issue for us. And I totally understand costs of everything are increasing, and we have no control over that. Growth is increasing, as you mentioned, unbelievably. We've tried to project tonnages. We're projecting approximately 30,000 tons for next year, which, that's at the current price about $900,000 a year that we've been paying Bannock County, and at the new rates, it could be anywhere from 1.2 to 1.35. So I think what we were asking was just to try to soften that blow. I know that a lot of the costs are remediation costs, probably $2 to $3 million a year in remediation costs, and a lot of that stems from an era that's far beyond when Bingham County started bringing their solid waste to Bannock County. So a lot of that cost, I know, isn't necessarily directly related to our...
And it's not, but the problem that it comes into is the amount of money that is available in any one year. We either have to pick between remediation or expansion. And if we can not expand for a certain amount of time because we have capacity, then it gives us the ability to remediate. But if the problem is if we're accelerating remediation, or if we're accelerating the amount of material we're taking in, and it's accelerating our capitalization rate, and we're not gaining the amount of funds needed to build the project and to remediate, we're under a consent order from the DEQ. We will remediate no matter what. So then it leaves us the option of we either have to go back to the taxpayers and raise Bannock County's rates, or we'll have to bond, or we'll have to do something, and I'm not willing to put us in that position. And again, the last contract that was signed, I think it actually came in right before I came into office. And I don't really know how a contract, I've never seen a contract where rates go down in an entity. But that's kind of how things appeared. And I get it. I'm still kind of confused with how Bingham County pays less than Bannock County. I've never understood that, especially your C&D waste you're not bringing down here, correct?
Correct.
C&D waste is all staying there. So I think, if you're bringing me all C&D waste, I would totally be like, yeah, that makes sense. But we're getting leachate, we're getting stuff that's, this is the stuff that we have to make sure that is maintained and taken care of. And that's where I say I have a real hard time with not having a rate adjustment that doesn't, the benefit of living in Bannock County is your property taxes, and you have a landfill here. And I have a real hard time when people say, well, the smaller counties need help, or we need to help them, and I totally get that, but everybody chose to live in that area, and that's where, if the cost to do business is more, then I hate to say it, I'm not gonna allow cost to be cheaper up there and we subsidize it. That's just where I'm at.
So, are either of you willing to consider?
I have no problem having a conversation.
Softening it, leaving them halfway for a year, and then by year two we're up to speed where we need to be, or not?
Kyle, come on. You submitted this paper to us. Y'all saw that.
Yeah. On that.
Let's talk about that just a little bit.
Kyle Burmester, Bannock County Public Works.
Okay, this paperwork that you just submitted to us.
Yep.
With no changes right now, Bannock County will pay $33, and Bingham County would pay $45.
Yes.
Correct?
That is with no year splits, anything going on. That's what we've been kind of asking for and needing.
Okay, and then, but currently, what is the rate for Bingham and Bannock?
29 and 30.
29 for
29 for Bannock and $30 per ton for Bingham.
And
on top of that 29,
we have our parcel charge.
So there's about there should have been about a $12 rate in between them to make up for our tax.
And then you submitted this paper, a 2-year split. Then fiscal year 22, you're saying that Bannock County was at $31.50, and Bingham County was at $38. That would,
But that's with us looking at an increase in our parcels from what we are today.
And then on top of that, we still pay per parcel.
Yeah, that's saying we're gonna pay that more money per parcel. So we're trying to pull some of that to make Bannock County's their tonnage not as high at the scale. So there'd be an increase on parcels and it still would go up the 250. So with the way that we're setting it up, or thinking about doing the special assessment, it would raise us $4. So that's just splitting that. With going into a 2-year, then we also gotta look at, we went 1 year where we're footing another bill of only having half of what we need to pay our bills. So that's where, what I have on there is just by that 1 year, we would have to get if this was a 5-year thing, we would have to have $34 a ton for Bannock County for the rest of the 5 years and $46 per ton out of Bingham for the
To make
rest.
it equitable.
Yes.
Commissioner, have you, or Kyle, so if Bingham County didn't bring their solid waste to Bannock County and we did end up entering with a 5-year contract with Southern Idaho Solid Waste, that's about $6.3 million in revenue. So that would obviously, and I know there's a balancing act between space in the landfill and revenue, but I'm assuming that revenue loss would probably force another Bannock County increase.
Yes, it would. We would have, the things you'd be looking at there is you'll have more airspace, a little less operational cost because of the less waste that's coming in. It would be more to Bannock County.
You probably wouldn't reduce staff
No.
due to that difference.
Well, your operational
Operational
cost
cost.
would probably surprise you how much it would cost. So your operational cost, and I know everybody wants to assume, oh, your operational cost wouldn't be that much, is it? I guarantee by the time you went through on fuel, and every one of those compactors that we have to buy, and some of the other things, that if I dropped out 30,000 tons of material and equipment, just pushing 30,000 pounds of material with a D7 dozer, I know how much that would cost. And there's inherent cost that's there. And like I said, when you start talking about it, okay, so it's going to cost Bannock County citizens $6 million in 3 years or 4 years, but in a 25-year life cycle, we don't have to do 2 more expansions at $7.5 million apiece. That's the problem I look at. So it's going to cost us, we'll lose $6 million in revenue, but we'll save 14. We'll only have to do 1 expansion. That's where I'm starting to talk about is what's the right answer?
Your previous contract was 30,000 tons a year bringing in, is that correct?
Correct.
And so, and what did you say your growth rate was? If it was more than ours, it'd be what? What was your growth rate up there?
No, I'm not sure. Commissioner. Google war. Not putting that.
Commissioners, another thing on that for the cost is your closure and the expansion cost too. You're spreading that out. So just like with this expansion we have, every time we have to do another lift and line more area of landfill, that sooner, that's more cost.
Well, number one, I wouldn't accept a flat 30,000 tons a year going forward, because if their growth rate is like ours, I don't think that's reasonable to expect flat garbage.
No.
Flat garbage growth.
In the contracts prior, there's been no set amount, so it's just been whatever we bring over, so.
Right. And then what are you guys charging what is your parcel assessment for your citizens? Do you know what that number is?
It's $40 per parcel. Oh, excuse me, yours was $40.
What's the commercial rate?
Excuse me?
What's your commercial parcels?
They are the same. We don't distinguish the difference between the two.
See, so again, and that's not something else, and I sound like a broken record, but what is our commercial rate in Bannock County, Kyle?
Right now it's 80,
Okay.
it's twice what residential is.
So if I own a roofing business in Idaho Falls and I own a roofing business in Pocatello and I'm ripping roofs off and I bring them to the landfill, it costs me more to have a roofing business in Bannock County, just by my address. And that's where I start having a problem, is that's.
Increase is 150.
Yeah, it's up to 150 now. And so that's, again, those are the things that we're talking about. As we start doing these things, why do we, I mean, government shouldn't pick winners and losers, but right now, we're basically picking winners and saying that Bannock County, we're gonna make you pay more for the people in Bingham County to do this. And it's not that I hate Bingham County, my family's from Bingham County, but this is not equitable. This is not a free market here. We're tilting the scales right now in the opposite direction, and I don't like that. And, you know,
I'll just tell you right now where I'm at. I would stay exactly where Kyle suggested, so we just do the increase. I appreciate Bingham County and their concerns, but my concern is for Bannock County and the people in Bannock County, and there's only so much land and waste that can go up there, and we're gonna have to be doing more. And so that's where I'm at.
I'm okay with that.
yep. And
So we're staying where you've been, the proposal was.
I appreciate that. I just had to take the time to come over and present a different side of things and see where we was at. So
Well,
thank you for your time still, and
We appreciate your county too, and the cooperation that we've had, but hopefully it'll continue.
we've enjoyed working with Kyle, so we're gonna see what we can do, and I'll go back and report to the commissioners, and we'll discuss things.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate the time.
Okay, Kyle, you're up.
Commissioners, Carl Burmester, Bannock County.
Mike Jablowski, County Engineer.
So we bring you some light reading today.
really?
I'm sure you've all had plenty of time to read it over 2 or 3 times. So this has been kind of going on for a couple years. We had one of our engineers in training last year starting to look into it a little bit. What we seen is we had a gap in between from ordinance to road and bridge stuff. So we have ordinance for zoning, we have ordinance for building, and when I first got into this position, we had lots of different drawings out there. What were we going with? And Mike knows that if we were all on a different page, there was a little bit of this, why do I pave this guy's road, or why do I snowplow here? There was just no rhyme or reason to anything. So I started kind of asking around to some of the other nearby counties. And apparently, every one of these counties has their highway standards. I was talking to the public works director out of Franklin County, and he said, well, that's with this expansion that we're all seeing, now it's really coming to light that you have to, and we weren't the only county without some help here. And so talking with Franklin County, they said, yeah, we're in the same boat. Oneida County was. A lot of these surrounding counties were in the same boat for the expansion. And they said, well, right now we are all working together with an engineering firm, and you can probably get a pretty good deal at it. And so I jumped on with them so that we could do a group deal and save our county money. They have some good ideas out there, and it's kind of nice to have a pretty standard and close standard to your surrounding county. So you don't have people coming into our county going, well, geez, Bingham County or Oneida County does this. We're trying to be as comparative as we can. So that's what, then with a lot of work between zoning, planning and development department, our engineering and our road and bridge, working together and reviewing this, we finally got something to bring to you that we feel is a pretty good policy.
Mike, you've had a chance to look through this and have your stamp of approval?
I've looked through it. It's been a little bit of homework to remind me of 20 some odd years ago. Here, read this manual and tell me what's wrong for a grade. And yes, I have read through it. I think Kyle depicts it well. We've arm wrestled over a couple things. We've talked about a bunch of things, and I think at the end of the day, this is good for the county. We do have a standard. You know, we are looking for a policy of how things will be done. I will add that the public will demonstrate to us how on base or off base we're on with this policy, and they'll help us try to figure that out. And we welcome, you know, some of those comments as development and different things occur. And but at the end of the day, this is a great start. And so, to answer your question, yes, I have reviewed it, and I know the content thereof.
Okay. I guess we have two options. We can put this on Tuesday's agenda to sign. If everybody needs more time to look at it, if you're good.
No, I'll probably take the weekend and read it, to tell you the truth.
Okay.
Yeah, I knew somebody'd like reading it.
That doesn't surprise me at all.
And I have an intern that is in the family, and she needs some homework, and she has a assignment too, and I know she'll love to read it as a civil engineer. So, but no, I would like to go through it just because there's just.
I appreciate the work that you've done on it.
Yep.
It is something we need a set standards so that we're
No, and
across
that
the whole county the same.
that would also be good for us commissioners, because we kept reading through it, and then the last day, you know, it's like, okay, one more time, I gotta find some reading to go to sleep at night, and there was 2 pages in the specifications that need changed, that there was.
Oh, you're giving me some reading points. He wasn't going to say anything, but now I said I'm going to read it. He's like, "Oh,
No,
we need to
no.
fix this right now."
I could say, I could not tell you what them changes were and see if you could find them.
Let's do that. No, he might not like that, because then I won't grad read it. I'll actually go through it really fine tooth comb. There's going to be a whole list of things.
So actually, and then we'll see what comes up for next week, but, if there is any other changes, but that would be, there'd be two pages that we would like to switch out.
And they're still in here.
Hmm.
What are they?
So they're in the standard drawings section, and they're the first 2 pages in standard drawings. These are the cutouts of our road section. They are the typical 2-lane rural road and typical 3-lane. So inside of there's the box, which is road structure schedule.
Mm-hmm.
In the very lowest one, the local road, it has under 400, but for the pavement thickness, there should have been a little reference there that's reference D, and so anything under 250 passes per day is the it's 2.5 inches thick, and then the other one
Above that is higher.
yeah. So it wasn't a real big one, but I caught that, and we've kind of started to let a few of the builders know that there might be some little variances.
We had a public hearing though with builders and other engineering groups and stuff in our community? That's one thing I was gonna ask. Have we had outside input on this yet?
No.
So I would say, you know, and I'm all in favor of doing it, but I actually think it would be good to probably have a public comment section from the people that do business in our communities. You know, you have your JUBs and your Rocky Mountains and those guys. And there's nothing, I mean, I know we're in a hurry, you know, that we want to get this done, but I don't think it would be out of the realm of, hey, we're going to ask for a 2-week public comment period to all you engineering firms and all this stuff, and you builders. I mean, what are the big paving companies that we still have? I mean, you got Mickelson's and Babcock doesn't pave anymore, you know. But I mean, the people that do business here, it might not be a bad idea to have them look at this, because that would probably, one, I think it would do two things. If there are changes, we've notified them that there were changes coming, and they had a chance to do it, and their ire and all that hate and discontent that's going to come will go away. And two, they could have some really good, hey, this is really good, and they can see that this is something that is going to make it easier, actually, I think, in the county to know that this is the standard. But I don't think it's a bad idea. I thought you already had planning and zoning. Nobody did any kind of like public.
No.
And I know it's not. So would this be considered ordinance then? Is our standard?
This is a policy.
So if it's just policy, I mean, I still look at, you know.
I think you're spot on with that we put it out for public comment for a couple of weeks. That I don't think this is going to cause us any strife if we move it out a couple of weeks.
And it gives you guys then that, hey, and let the engineering community know, and the builders, and everybody who comes in, put a big sign up there, hey, this is available for public comment. We won't give you a copy, but because we'll kill a tree if we have to, but
You can go to
but
your-
please read it or look at it, because like I said, I reference back to the 25-foot standoff, and the material must be a light material, and you can't have concrete tying into asphalt off of a drive, you know. Those are the issues that I think if we give them a chance to read that.
So are you saying that like having a draft version on our website?
Yeah,
too,
just put
that-
draft on it and just let people read it.
And then we send them to that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
And-
I think that's a great idea, and so I would support that completely.
And I agree with that. I also caution that what we're trying to do is get their buy-in.
Yeah.
We're still gonna rely on our engineer.
Yes.
And the engineer that developed the program
Correct.
for direction. It isn't gonna be something
They're not
we're gonna
read,
just lightly change.
yeah, they're not redoing it, but we're asking for general comment or points. Hey, I noticed on 3.2111, whatever, that your asphalt lifts were maybe not, or this, is this something you want to check? That's what we're looking for. Or why is this way? Is this something we need to do? Currently, we do it this way in Bannock County, and you're asking us to change now to something different. That's what we're looking for, is there drastic changes that this is going to cause in our county, of how what would be considered standard and customary. Maybe the other counties have done it, and that's where when you do a combined document like this, sometimes you get, well, the group more does it this way, but I hate to say it, who do we make change? The 4 small counties, or the 1 county that's 3 times our population?
Well, I don't think this document is the same all the way through. I
No.
think the bones and the structure is.
But the guts
But
should be
we,
different.
yeah, the guts, that's what took most of the time, is looking through the guts and making sure it makes sense to First Road and Bridge, and the longevity of the road. I mean, from our standpoint, we want to build a road, we want it built, and we want it to last for 25, 30 plus years. And a lot of that is dependent on the thickness of the ballast, the thickness of the asphalt, the thickness of the road mix, the road base that's in there, the way that it's compacted and everything else. You know, from a county standpoint, this is great.
Well, I think what it does too, though, is those engineers, the people that are really going to read this. Let's be honest. This is fairly dry material, no pun intended.
No way.
But what it's going to cause, though, is the people that do this every day are the ones that are going to want to look at this, and they're going to see. And I think that you know, what I had looked at it already, you probably will. I don't think you'll get much, if anything. But it'll just, hey, we had public comment out there. There you go.
Couldn't hurt.
Yeah.
That's good. all too often hear people complain about government just doing something without talking to those who it impacts, and so I think this bridges that gap.
Sounds good. And it gives me more than 4 days to read it. That's at least 3 weeks worth of falling asleep material right there.
It takes a while.
But you just don't read, you don't get the whole thing, because if you do, you're gonna wake up and the whole thing's gonna be on the floor. You gotta just, pages at a time.
Well, I appreciate your effort in doing that, Kyle.
Thanks, guys.
Great.
All right, renewable energy credits.
Oh, yeah.
Where are you going?
No. I was gonna scratch that off of there, but I can give you a little bit of an update of,
Okay.
because there's still a lot of work to go, and I got a lot still to go through legal on that. I did find out, I've been talking to some of the other landfills that are doing that. They said to be careful with, some of these sites that you don't get a low cost. One of their suggestions is going out for RFP for someone to manage that for you. But then you still also have that question of, what is a rep? And can we sell it? One other thing is a question that was brought up that was kind of interesting is we produce power and sell it, and this is caused by that power. Is that?
So it's enumerated in a county code that we may generate up to a certain amount of electricity and sell it on the open market. There's actually a section in code, I think it's up to 7,500 kilowatts, is what we're allowed to generate at any one time. It has a section in there, I remember reading it, where it's an enumerated power. I would say that where it's not enumerated, nothing says that you couldn't do an RFP. An RFP can act as like an auction to sell something for disposition. We're going to hold an RFP to manage, to provide a service, and sell this credit. And the RFP is basically like you're selling. That's how you're doing it. Like when we go to prime time. Here's our contract. This is what we ask for. We ask for rates. That's what you do in your RFP. You put your clean energy credits, the management of those credits, the fees assigned to manage those credits, and what your markup would be, and then they would take it out. But you just put that RFP out and you bid it just like you do the concession stand up at the event center or a jail expansion or anything like that.
And that's what we're looking at doing is that's the consensus I got out of the other landfills, and said, I don't know if I would just do it on your own. You will make a lot better money off of it if you have somebody manage that for you.
I get nervous just having somebody coming and offering to do it for us without going to RFP. Anytime anybody comes to the government and says, hey, I want to do this for you, no, obviously there's a money-making opportunity there, and we need to probably put that out for
Okay.
something.
So after a little more with legal on things, then I'll come back.
All right, thank you.
Kyle?
Sheriff?
No, it's going to what section of code? Oh, don't do that.
Rolling stuff around.
All right, we just had a workplace accident here. Somebody's getting a safety video.
Tony Manu, Bannock County Sheriff. So I was contacted by the estate executor for Glen Allen, our neighbor to the south. He's passed away, and now apparently there was a litigation that I didn't have any knowledge about in the past. Herzog is aware of it. He's familiar with the past litigation about these trees that are on the corner of Highway 91 and Darby, which create kind of a safety issue with traffic when you're coming out of our parking lot. And it'd be on the southwest corner. And when you look at it, we've had one car hit, a sheriff's car hit, and a lot of close calls because of the obstruction of the view. So his brother had contacted me saying that he brought up the litigation, says, hey, I know my brother was a hardhead about all this, but I don't have a problem with these trees being removed at the county's expense, of course. That's what and that was his proposal.
And
So when I got that, I
liability.
said, well, that's not up to me. So it's really kind of out of my wheelhouse whether it gets removed on our expense or not. So that was basically the reason why I brought this to you guys as far as a discussion about that, which it is a hazard. I mean, anytime you go on that southwest corner, you can see it yourself. But I don't know where that would lie. I know Herzog was going to try to be here with some of the history. He's reached out to the brother since and said he's willing to work whatever legal side necessary. Apparently they have a pretty good relationship in the past. I believe Herzog lives in the family's house currently that they grew up in, so there's more than just a friendship connection there. So that's kind of it's the only thing that I have related to that.
The problem I have is do we go cut everybody else's trees down?
And we brought that up as well.
That's the thing that bothers me, is we have an ordinance that says you shall not have something that blocks the road within this site triangle. I remember when this came up a couple years ago, and it was basically, the guy ended up going in and cutting them, because you had to do it. And I just look at it that if we do this, then are we gonna have to do it for everybody? And do we not enforce the ordinance? Or do we go do it and send them the bill? I mean, that's the whole thing it comes back to, is I don't think it's appropriate for us to pay for it.
We don't even go do it. We just
But no, you're just
contract it. for somebody
and that's what I
to
mean,
send
we
the
just
bill.
contract it and say, hey, and then we put an encumbrance or a lien on the property and when they go through escrow and they're trying to liquidate the assets and do everything, that it just has to be paid.
It's gonna take a while for that place.
It's okay.
So I don't think it's going anywhere. real soon.
We have liens for indigent services that are way old. I'm okay with that.
Very old. There's
So-
been no bid or anything like that of what it
No,
cost.
I've got they contacted me and I thought, well, this is not something I can decide on. It's definitely the way he proposed it. I thought, well, I can't tell you yes or no, but I'll bring it to the commission. And that's what I informed him through email. And then Steve responded to him as well. And I'm assuming, based on what I'm hearing, is he can respond to him on a legal census as far as how to take care of that matter.
Just that property has like problems anyway.
Oh, yeah.
And then this line that says, of course, the county will be responsible for any damages to Glenn's property.
Right.
I'm not accepting any responsibility.
We'd expect you to get it done, or we'll just contract and have lien placed on the property.
Right. Well, like I said, I thought it was important that you guys at least know about it and
Yeah.
see how you wanted to handle that as far as, because really it has nothing to do with the sheriff's office other than the proximity of that problem. So,
Well, and it's just, yeah.
It's a no for me.
Nope.
so do you want to
Just
let
like
legal
the mayor's is
handle
down.
that one? I would let legal handle the response to that.
Yeah.
Sounds like Mr. Herzog knows what's going on.
Yes.
He does, and he was actually looking up the past litigation. He thought he'd be here. He came earlier, and so I guess or you can pass that on to him, or I can. It doesn't matter. So we've had discussions about it. So
I can talk to him too.
all right,
Whatever is easiest for you.
Yeah.
cool.
Okay.
All right.
Hey, is there a fire burning in Bannock County yet? I saw on the news last night
No.
there was one right on the border of Power in Bannock,
It was
and they said it was 300 acres, and they showed a picture of this raging fire on the news, and
I would think it was that side of the county.
yeah, they said
There
it
was one that was put out pretty quick.
I didn't know what was going on. It smelled smoke last night, so.
I think it was in Downey.
Yeah, it was like, no, it was on the border of Power and Bannock
I know
on
there
their
was one in
side in
Downey
Harbin.
as well.
Yeah.
That was extinguished pretty quick.
Cool.
So,
I just,
you know.
you know, gotta love the news when I mean, the picture, you should go look at the picture. The picture, it must be a 10,000 acre raging fire. Oh my, I'll ask today.
1,600 acres.
Is it? Okay. The Lusk fire?
Lusk.
Yeah, if you keep an eye on that, if it jumps in or comes in, or,
I'll call the sheriff, see what he says.
yeah, if they're, I mean, you know, and the other thing too is with Wes and those guys, is if they need, if it does look like it's getting bigger and power might need help or whatever, we need to just be mindful of that.
Okay,
Thanks, sir.
all right.
Thanks, Tony.
Jamie?
Yeah, that was good. We have 1600 acre fire. That's a big fire. That's not a little fire.
Hello.
Yeah.
Jamie Pearson, Bannock County Fair Board Coordinator. So I'm just here asking approval to send out the request to have volunteers at the fair during the week. It's pretty straightforward. I mean, it's pretty simple.
We've done it in the past. Any
It started
complaints?
before I worked here, so I don't know how long it's been going. Kristen might know better than me, but it's just a form that we send out. They get a T-shirt and we give them a meal ticket for their time. They do not. They get paid by their department, of course, but they don't get paid mileage. So,
Yeah.
so I'll
As
just.
long as it's cleared through all supervisors.
Yep.
For somebody to leave.
Yeah, it says on here that they can sign up with supervisor approval, and it says the time, so that's all you need. We're good?
Go forth.
Okay. Thanks.
Christie.
Can we have Adam come up?
Hello, Adam McKinney, CTO.
So, upon review of our monthly budget to actual reports, it's come to our attention that 911 is going to, has experienced a shortfall of budget authority. So we are before you to talk about how we plan to solve that. Right now, there's about a $22,000 shortfall, and we anticipate needing another $52,000 to get through the remainder of the year. So part of the shortfall came from, we paid an invoice we thought was ours. Pocatello also paid that invoice. It was their invoice. But it's one of those Motorola invoices that
It's the modules for their law enforcement software. Currently, we're trying to figure out exactly how the previous CTO billed this stuff back out. We used to get it as one big package and the county basically paid it, but for the last couple of years, they've been sending it to us as split up, and some of the agencies pay their portion and some of them do not. And we're trying to work through how exactly that is being billed back out to them. So this was one that we paid. It was received early in the year, paid for by us. They also got a copy of it, paid for it as well. Their payment was kicked back to them, so they ended up giving it to us and mitigated that one.
So I received a check from the city of Pocatello for that $24,000. So the gist of the solution we've come up with is we're going to need a total of $75,000. Our plan is to move the chief technical officer's salary, the remainder of the salary for the year, into the IT budget. There is room to do so, and then I would bring forward our approval form for you to sign, making that effective in 19, because we're not processing that payroll yet, so it would be retroactive. But that would give us $21,000 plus benefits. Originally, I thought with doing that, opening the budget for the $24,000 that we received back from Pocatello for the overpayment, and then also we've got some excess health insurance money of about $7,900. I thought that would be pretty close to what we needed. It is not, so we're going to need to come up with about another $22,000. I think by the end of the year, we may have additional unanticipated revenue that we could open the budget and move that would make that enough money. Or the other option is we could move the programmer analyst that we discussed earlier today in budget. We talked about putting that position in IT for next year. We could also move that position this year. And if I did that, that would give us sufficient funding. So,
And the IT budget has room to do both of those.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have an empty position that was never backfilled that's been carried over a couple years in a row now.
so the summary of all of that is we would have, I forgot to do the math on that one. We would move, $37,000 from a budget. We would move the remaining, benefits, which is 18,000, and that would give us the $24,000 that we needed. And then we wouldn't have to worry about opening the budget, hoping that we have unanticipated revenues. We would still open to the 24,000 that we received.
Send the bill by a sheet.
Yeah.
I know that that is the idea some people would like to propose. We have been looking at that. I actually have a little bit of breakdown for that for a later meeting.
I'm open to either one.
Yeah, we're
Yeah,
gonna do that
let's just get
anyway,
it.
so
Let's just get
let's
it.
move.
Okay, so I'll go ahead and move a budget
Okay.
and the benefits, and then, then we can anticipate opening the budget for the 24,000. I won't do that until we reassess all the departments, which will be in probably in about 2 weeks.
Okay.
We have to publish for that, so I don't want to incur any
Okay.
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 I'm good with that.
Okay?
Okay, that takes care of 911.
Okay. Thank you.
Thanks, Adam.
Okay, so it bothered me, so I had to find it right quick. So 31,869 is powers and duties of the commissioners to develop of energy systems is actually what it is, and we can generate up to 25 megawatts in capacity. We shall sell on the open market at wholesale, but it doesn't go into credits. So I think it would be to follow the same pattern of how we would sell electricity. It would be the same byproduct. It would be sold at wholesale, so you would sell it with like an MFP as well. So if you're ever curious, we can generate 25 megawatts.
It was bothering me.
It bugs me, man. I knew I read it somewhere. Like, I want to find this now. And I couldn't find it. It took me like, it took me a minute. It's like,
It's just not a gigawatt. It was gigawatt.
1.1 gigawatts. But, there you go.
I have one more item on the agenda, but that's going to require executive session. Do you want to do that last? So that we don't have to do everybody? We'll just do mine last.
Right.
All right, come on up.
You know what I mean? Thank you. All right. What are we doing today?
Hi, Scott Carter, Business Manager and Event Director.
I'm Adam Reed, Idaho State University Student Activities Board Director.
So Adam approached us to do an activity that we don't have on the fee schedule, and it's kind of outside of our standard practices, but I think it sounds pretty cool. So before we move forward in putting together some contracts and possibly any sort of numbers that was associated with it, I wanted to bring it before the commission to see if this is something you guys approve of, and then we can move forward and build from there. So, Adam?
Yeah, one thing the administration at ISU has tasked us with this year is to think outside the box concerning new events that we haven't done before. So one thing that we wanted to do this year is a polar plunge, where in the middle of winter, we can run down to the Fort Nick Wellness Complex and let students jump into the water. Of course, all of you would be welcome to be first in line there. But things that we will have to look at is having first responders, EMS, attend, just things like that. But that is the bones of the event. The details are yet.
So what are you going to do when it's frozen over?
That is on our
Chip a
questions
hole.
list.
Chip a hole.
You cut it open with a chainsaw.
Yeah.
Chip a hole.
But, and again, because we hadn't done something like this in the past, before we start down the path of looking at logistics and costs, I wanted to bring it forward to you guys to see if this is something that you guys would like us to pursue, and then we'll just start building from there. So this is not approval for the contract, this is just approval for this type of event.
It can be like a fundraiser, or?
What are you doing?
So because our funds come from student fees, so when we program events, we program them for the students. They're always free for students. When public comes, we never want to turn anyone away, so we say $3 for public, $5 for public, just to maybe negate some of the costs that it took from our budget to begin with. But not necessarily called a fundraiser because we're not trying to make any money back. We have funds set aside for this event already, but if the general public wants to come and attend, we'll make it worth their time too.
You ever done this before?
A polar plunge, like myself personally, I have jumped in freezing cold water before, yes.
Yeah, it's
The worst. The worst is what it is.
As long as there's a hot tub right there next to you, then it's great.
Call Nick, have him bring some hot tubs up. Get a sponsorship.
I would say this would turn over to you.
Right.
And we don't mind. I mean, we like thinking out of
Yeah.
the box also. Just the coverage of
Yeah.
medical and things like that.
Waiver of participants is one thing I would say is anybody who's gonna do it, and you're gonna jump in this, Bannock County is not responsible. You can hold ISU responsible all you want, but you don't get to hold Bannock County responsible.
Yeah, we'll send a contract to our risk management, and they'll get the wording right and count on ISU.
Well, I'm gonna throw down right now and say, Jason, you in?
I'm in.
I'm in.
Perfect.
All right.
I've had to do this before.
I'm on the bank.
You're in the hot tub.
I'll be a towel holder.
No, I'm serious. What you should do is you go get Nick, who owns a hot tub shop over on Jefferson. You say, hey, you want to sponsor this event for us, and have him bring up 4 or 5 of them and get them ready.
Awesome, so we'll get into details. Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
Cool, thank you.
Appreciate it.
Great idea.
And then the second contract that we have on there, the
that?
people were not able to make it to this meeting, so we'll have to just push that one back a little bit. The event is for Chris and the next guy. So we have a little bit of time on that one, but we wanted to make sure they had the ability to be here and represent themselves.
Okay.
That's it for event center stuff. And I did have one other item on there just talking about leave for exempt employees. So I invited Ryan to be part of this discussion. I talked to Chrissy Clouser about it. I talked to Brian a little bit about it. Talked to Ryan about it. Formulated a handful of different ideas. I just wanted to bring them to you guys and kind of have a discussion about leave specifically for exempt employees, and then maybe have a direction moving forward. So one of the things that when I first came here, I noticed is we have a few good options for our staff. If our staff work over their allotted 40-hour schedule, we can either pay them overtime, we can pay them time, or comp time, time and a half, whatever. But when it comes to salaried employees and our exempt employees, we tend to just expect our folks to work and be available and do things. But then when it's time to use leave, we will use leave in a 4-hour block or an 8-hour block. But there's not really the comp time that we can accrue as exempt employees. When I worked for the state of Utah, they had a system where we accrued comp time as an exempt employee. It didn't mean anything, it didn't have any value to it, but it just was a way of tracking. And it was hour for hour. So I could go in there and I could just work my normal time and put it in, and if I had extra time, then it just rolled like a vacation. If I needed to use it later on, I could. But in my current position I'm at, I've put a lot of time in there. I think you guys know that I put a lot of time in there. And I do that because I care about the position, not because I expect something in return. But having said that, at the point when things do start to slow down, if I wanted to take time off, I would be able to take just a couple of days that I accrued during the summer, rather than actually taking overtime to compensate for the amount of time that I may have put in. So I just want to have a discussion with you guys to see what your feelings are. Like I said, there's a couple different options out there, and I can. If Ryan were here, he would be able to.
Ta-da!
You're up.
Wow, okay.
I just said it's Ryan.
If Ryan were here.
The phone.
So the things that we've talked about is I've talked about like the comp time and tracking comp time. Obviously that takes work with our payroll system. It would take this. I'm sure it would be the same type of. We'd have to set up permissions in there, so the supervisor or the approving entity would have to convert time above 40 hours to comp time. That would then be worth nothing if we wanted the comp time avenue. Ryan and I have discussed flex schedule option. And you can kind of explain the flex schedule.
Yeah, so especially for exempt and non-exempt employees, it'd be a little different. But with the the exempt employees, we already have this, right, where the management can decide if it's schedule when people are gonna work within the work week, right? And we just pay overtime when it goes over 40, but it doesn't matter when, if it's all in the front part of the week or the back part of the week or nights or mornings. With salaried, rather than, if we want, there could be an option where, I guess I go back to my days working in a university setting where we would say, we're paying you to teach this class this semester, and whether you're working 10 hours a week or 50 hours a week, we're still paying you the same amount because your job is to teach the class in 4 months. And for us, there's similarities, and I wish Brian was here, but we're to do a job, right? And so it's, as a director of the event center, you gotta manage the affairs of the event center and keep the events going and do this, whether it takes you 30 hours a week or 70 hours a week. You just gotta get the job done. And in positions where maybe someone's consistently working like 70 hours a week, and then there's gonna be a slow time, why not just consider that like flex schedule and let them have that week. It has to be approved, of course, by the elected official department head, but just that's part of just a flexible schedule where, you know, you're going to work like crazy on this side, and then you're going to get a little bit of a break on this side. Again, and it all have to be approved, and it's treated more of a scheduling thing, as a scheduling thing.
So the big
and that's an idea.
So the big difference in the comp time and the flex schedule is it's kind of based upon the performance and expectations of the supervisor, right, or the elected official in this case. But there's no real counting, right? You don't account for your hours when you're working, and you don't account for your hours when you take them off, right? It's just, you know, it's just you flex time when you have time. Right? Yeah. And from talking to Brian, and I don't want to misrepresent the conversations that we've had, but he's stated that, you know, the salaried employee, you're paid for the job you do, and it depends on how we chunk that up. Do we say you're paid for the job you do for the year, you're paid for the job you do for the month, you're paid for the job you do for the week, the hour, you know, like how do we break that up and make it to where we could be, you know, could be used, you know. So I bring that back to you guys to say I think there's some options, but I do believe that I think that something like this for our exempt employees is needed. I think would help out a little bit. I have had other department heads when I was the chief of staff come talk to me about this exact issue, and it's something I had on my radar. I've talked about it quite a bit. It's just interesting because now I'm working on
now you're living it.
I'm working a lot. I mean, the reality is I won't get back any of the weekends that I've worked and that stuff. But there probably will be a time where I'm like, hey, I want to pop off the radar for a minute, you know, and so.
The only concern I have about the flex schedule is for those departments that don't have a downtime. So, say you have a really heavy season during the summer, and you actually do get some downtime, you'll be able to take advantage of that. You have other departments that doesn't have that. I'm speaking for myself. I don't have a downtime anymore.
Well, but that's
so when I work the last 2 weekends trying to get budget done, when do I take that off if we do a flex schedule? So I'm more in favor of tracking the time and having no monetary value to it, because I don't know that I'm ever going to be able to take the benefit.
Well, and
there's going to be other people like that. I'm not a single person.
But that's what I say
is treated that way.
Coming back to like the comp time or whatever, is that's where, you know, no, you should be, hey, as a salaried employee, yeah, you have the benefit of being a salaried employee, but we don't expect you, especially me, I don't expect people to work 80 hours a week for a 40-hour-a-week salary. There should be comp time or flex time or however you do that. That work-life balance, I look at your elected official of that's something you guys have got to work on, and that's something that we've got to as a county. When you have employees that are working a lot, you have to have some kind of work, and we have to find a way to punch them out and get them out when they do that, because all that happens then is they just burn themselves out and they're mad at work and hate everybody, and then that's, you know, it's not a good thing. And it is, it's that work-life balance. We don't always pay the most, but if we can help with some of these things, I mean, because what's the true cost to the county on a flex time or even your comp time thing? They're getting paid the same, there is no cost. And I look at it, you are a salaried employee because you are of the level of self-sufficiency. You don't need to be regulated and have a direct supervisor wondering what you're doing every hour of the day. If your job doesn't get done, we're going to know, because the world's going to come to an end in your department. I mean, if you just didn't show up to work for 2 weeks, we would probably have an issue. But
Well, what's the difference between taking 2 weeks of vacation and doing something like this?
Yeah.
I don't see it. And to your point, what is the difference between tracking for a flex, or tracking for comp time versus a flex schedule? Because as you correctly indicated, you know, you're going to have trouble taking time off no matter what. And if there is no cash value or benefit that way, what's the difference? I'm not understanding that.
Well, I'm just saying, you're gonna have some departments that are gonna have overtime. You're gonna have other departments that aren't going to. So, the point of this is to create some equity between non-exempt employees and exempt employees.
Right.
Non-exempts get comp,
Well,
we don't.
Correct.
So, now you're gonna have basically either a flex schedule or comp time for exempt employees. If you just have a flex schedule, what happens for those departments that don't have a downtime?
And that's my
So
point. That's my
say-
point. That even if you have comp time, they'll be still not run into the same problem.
Yeah,
But
but it
neither
might-
one has monetary value,
Okay.
it's time off.
right? I mean,
I
we're
just-
not obligated to pay
Yeah.
overtime for comp, I mean, even at 1-to-1.
Right.
And where my thought is on this wouldn't be like an automatic thing, but it would be like another tool in the toolkit that you can use for situations where it makes sense.
Well, the thing I like about, it doesn't matter either way, comp time or whatever, if we are keeping track of that, then I say, Scott, I don't care what's going on.
Go take some
Next
time off.
week, you're taking some time off. Jason says, Christie, I don't care what you're doing, you're taking time off because according to the
And
record,
leave your laptop and your cell phone here.
I mean, that to me is a better tool for us
Yes. It helps us
as your
track
boss
actually what people are
to
doing.
tell you, sorry, I don't care if you don't want to go or not. I think Big Bang Theory, I think Sheldon had that situation or something.
And I think what it really boils down to is
Pulling
tracking.
out Big Bang.
Yeah.
The cultural reference.
So it boils down to tracking, right? So if we do comp time, then there's gotta be a tracking element to it. If you do flex schedule, there's not necessarily tracking, it's a supervision issue, right? So again, if you have somebody that works for you that you feel is taking too much leave, or you're not validating the time they're taking off, then that would be a supervision.
But that's why I kind of actually like the comp side, because it does help us gauge. You can start watching, hey, we have this exempt employee and they've been building a lot of comp time lately. It's not going to cost us anything, but you're building a lot of comp. Why are you building all this comp time? Well, I can't get people hired and I don't have this to work, and this is what's going on. That's where you can actually then step in, and it helps us know not only is this person working more, but that also starts justifying in the discussion of additional personnel in the next budgetary cycle. If you see that supervisors and those exempt employees are starting to rack up the hours, well, how do we mitigate that? Well, you make them go on vacation, but in the next budgetary cycle, hey, we got a bunch of attorneys that each attorney at the end of the year has 250 comp hours. Something's starting to not look right when you have an entire office of attorneys that are all having, that gives you an indication then that you probably would have the need for another employee or another, staff.
So having seen kind of both sides of this, I'll give you, again, personally, I don't care, right? Because I think that you're going to see a lot of hours for my position during the summertime because it requires that.
Mm-hmm.
And then you're still going to see a lot of hours in the wintertime because we have a lot of work to do. But I think that one of the issues you run into is most people in these positions really kind of dictate when they work and when they don't.
Yeah.
Right? And so, like, if I'm at home and I get on and start answering emails, I get phone calls, you start looking, do I count 15 minutes every phone call you get? Which, in some cases, you do, right? And honestly, I've called Christy when she's on vacation. She answered, she helped me, right? Like, I know
But
And I
it's-
want to
but
say
it's
you
what
were on
we
a,
do.
you were on a nobody call Christie time,
That
but
is what we do.
so what I'm getting at is from a tracking standpoint, you can get a little bit in the mud.
Yes.
But it does still show you, it gives you a good accurate representation. It really boils down to trust of your department heads.
Yeah.
On both, because if I have a department head that is manually entering their time in, which a lot of us are busy, and so you get in there at the end of the day and you say, okay, I got here at 8 o'clock and I'm leaving at, midnight, then that necessarily isn't even accurate, because
Yeah.
I can say what hours I work. So it just goes down to this tracking piece, and it all really boils back to supervision. So,
For me, we pay to do a job. We don't pay to sit in a seat for X hours a day. And to me, the simplest, easiest thing is to flex schedule, clear it through your supervisor, elected officials, whoever that may be, and go. Because as you correctly identified, you may or may not have a downtime, but you would know when you could take that time as needed. So that's what I'm.
Well, elected official just needs to know, hey, go pick the weekend, or go pick a week, you're not gonna be here. I mean, seriously, those of us that have been in the staff, you have to do that.
And the only thing, how would you keep track of comp time?
We could set up a paper
Nova.
in.
You do it Nova time.
Nova time, and do it just like we do for, non-exempts. The only difference is the exempt employees would have to start punching, which some still do, some don't. So you do have, you could maybe bring this up at your elected officials meeting, see what your thoughts are.
And the only reason I don't mind keeping track of it somehow is, just like Carol says, you end up with 200, 300 hours of comp time by the end of the year, then we need to look at that department. Do we need to have more people in that department to work? So that what responsibility, what duties?
I think it's a good study thing. To tell you the truth, I like the data. That's the one thing I like about doing the comp time, is it does give us a true measure then because you always hear at budget time, oh, we worked so many hours, we have this. And I'm not doubting that people don't. But sometimes hey, we've kept track of our time over this last year, and this is what it shows. That's the only reason why I like the comp time route.
Yeah, and I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
What's the easiest way
Yeah.
to do this? Because
It does, but at the same time, we're also, we got exempt employees that are not just department heads. And that's the other thing. If it was just department heads, I'd say let's do the flex time. But you do have some people, you got all the lawyers, right?
well, the
That are always
lawyers
down.
currently do it.
Yeah, and you guys
This
are
is the
currently doing
flex
it.
schedule right now, right? Is that correct?
How do you guys take time off?
He just,
I
we
think it
go.
depends on the office
Yeah.
too.
Yeah, I mean,
But
I know we always, we
It
chat
helps
with our
standardize it across the
supervisors
board,
about
though,
where we're gonna be.
One of the
but-
things that this will play into, if you do go down this road, is payouts when you have an exempt employee leave. So if you decide to do this with comp time, and even if it's, even a flex schedule, then instead of me taking, say, 2 days off next week, regardless of if I work the weekend, then if I have a flex schedule, I won't be claiming any time. So, which kind of.
So you
we-
accrue
we do that
vacation
to
and
an
sick leave.
extent.
Yeah.
And where that essentially comes in is you would get a payout, or you could get a
Yeah.
payout when somebody retires, or when somebody leaves.
So that would be something to look
That's-
at.
that is-
If you're accruing vacation and sick,
You
Yeah.
still, you
Now, if
still
you-
would accrue vacation.
while you're on comp time.
Mhm.
But if you've
Not
earned,
while you're on comp time, but
No.
hypothetically, you could
Technically, yes.
work and never
Yeah.
use a vacation day,
Right.
right? And so you would just continue to accrue
Okay.
vacation.
then let's do it a little easier then, and do it like when I worked for some corporate people. Is they did away with all of our comp time and all this other stuff, and if we did have the people that were exempt, and how it worked for them is, their vacation time, they didn't carry over. There's no carryover thing here.
But there's lots of, there's pros, there's cons. It's all gonna depend on your department head. So you may have a department head
Or we just
that
don't.
very rarely has overtime. So they're still gonna use down their sick and vacation, because they're not gonna have the extra hours, the comp hours.
Yeah.
Then you're gonna have those department heads or exempt employees that work a ton, a lot, and then have some downtime to take it off. It's just, it could potentially play into that payout, so I just wanted to have that on your
Well,
radar.
I'm not ready to make a decision right now,
Yeah.
because there's some things that
Yeah,
we need to
just
talk
talk.
about.
Yeah.
Just like the things you just brought up. we need to look at the whole picture.
Well,
But that's why I brought that up, is because that's part of the picture that you need to look at, because it could have a financial
Well,
impact in that aspect.
And we have an elected officials meeting too in a couple minutes, and it would be a good idea to have that conversation too, because it's also gonna affect everybody.
Yes. And you might find some other input from elected officials that this won't work for, or some that are absolutely gonna love it.
And then others that it's just, thank you for playing.
Have a nice day.
Have a nice day. Go forth and do good things. But we need to,
There's some more avenues to look at. I mean,
Yeah.
like I say,
It is
I
something to
was
talk about.
just selling along and then all of a sudden, well, no, it's gonna cost you this. It's gonna,
I,
I think there's some things that we need to,
I don't
we
think.
trust each of our employees and you've been given that title and that responsibility, but we still have to protect the county.
I don't think it'd be a bad idea to maybe put some of this on paper for some ideas and maybe come up with some more defined course of action of how exactly would it work for a flex or a comp. And let's maybe
So-
answer some of those if we
So,
have it.
real quick, I can just tell you again, I can go back to when we accrued comp time.
Uh-huh.
Our comp time went away every October. We got no, like,
Yeah, it's
you
gone.
couldn't carry comp time, but you could accrue and carry sick time and vacation. And when you left, you got paid out on your vacation. It was something that you did. But again, we tracked our hours, so you saw when somebody went over, but your comp time always expired. So your vacation was under the same rules as
Yeah.
every other vacation. You could, and when I was the warden, I accrued comp time like you wouldn't believe. When I was the director of industries, I didn't. And so I used my vacation time. But it all depended on when I got to work and turn in my time, you know? And that was again the benefit of comp time. The comp time expires, the vacation still has a monetary value. And again, from an ease standpoint, that would be the cleanest way to do it. We have no overtime that can track it already.
Yeah.
Right, we have no overtime that can track it, it costs nothing. And then you don't have to worry about the vacation versus sick versus payout, not payout. Your comp time just expires December 31st, or whatever we call it. It expires that day, and you start over accruing your comp time. That is an easier way to do it than it is to, if we just said take time and work the flex schedule, just because the flex schedule does allow people to never use vacation or sick time, but you don't necessarily have the documentation to say why they didn't use it.
Well, comp time does too, to me. It allows a person to use their comp time and not use vacation.
Yeah, but you know they worked that comp time, so it's a 1-for-1 hour replacement. So if I don't put anything down on my time card, and I just take a week off or whatever, I would essentially just accrue mountains of vacation. And there's already a policy for that. At some point, they're gonna just fall off anyway. You can only carry so many hours. Most of your exempt employees are gonna be maxed out on their sick leave and their vacation regardless. But that's the only difference is that somebody could technically do that without tracking and saying, because with your comp time, I could say I have 13 hours of comp time, and if I take 25 hours off, I take 13 hours of comp time and 12 hours of vacation. So, how would you like us to proceed? Because I think that maybe continuing down this.
Well, I think just like Carol
Something in
said.
writing.
I'd
we
get
need-
it on paper
Yeah.
and start putting together the proposal. The other question I just had is in Nova time, can it do a rolling counter? So like,
It doesn't have enough.
the biggest problem that we run into right now is when does stuff expire? Because everybody, like you said, different departments and different people have different times that are busy at different years. So if you say, hey, all your comp time's gonna expire October 1st or September or January or July or whatever you do, there's always, and this is, I've heard it from all different departments, all departments are busy at different times. So I was just curious if Nova Time had a rolling clock.
Oh, yeah.
So if you did it on
Yeah.
July 1st of this year, it's gonna expire July 1st of next year.
Well, the leave is actually tracked in our timing system.
Okay.
But your timesheets will forever be in overtime.
Yeah.
So you could pull a report from, say, October 1 to September 30, and you could see an employee's time.
Yeah.
And you could see what was used, so you could get an idea of when they were busiest, when they weren't. The other thing you would do is it would show up on the leave report.
Yeah.
When they did accrue comp at straight time.
See, and that's what I was
So-
saying, is I was just curious, because
Yeah.
that's always the thing, is
Yeah,
because, you
you'd be
know,
able to pull it and see it there.
because if you're busy in December, and you're busy in January, and you're busy in July, us trying to pick a deadline of when it's gonna expire, it's just easier to say, you have 364 days to use it, and if it's a rolling clock. I had a rolling clock on where, and I don't know, and it was done in our system that way.
I would say it would be easier to have the time expire on December 31st, because that's when the vacation
So, yeah, you could,
drops
yeah.
off
yeah.
to 240.
It's
So,
easier for people to understand.
yeah, and it would just be consistent.
I like that.
We just need to make sure that we're just cognizant that everybody in all departments understand that. And if we're doing that, and if you have a department and you always wonder about like snowplow or all those other guys, if that's when they're doing it, I just don't want to have a bunch of people that, and the problem that you run into is, okay, so you're busy and you're working from October to December and you've accrued all of this time and you haven't had time to take off, and then you lose it and it's gone.
Yeah.
That's just the one thing I'm
And
concerned
that-
with.
But that forces them to be a little bit more judicious.
Well, it does. It does.
Except when you have year-end processes that you're working on from.
And you're under
trying to do
deadlines
financial.
to state. And that's what I'm talking about.
And the reality is we
It's
have
your
that.
decision, not ours.
But we have that with all of our
You know what I'm saying?
employees currently.
We can't answer that for everybody.
Right. And there is gonna be no happy medium.
Right.
No, there's
So
not.
you just have to roll with whatever there is. But
Right.
honestly, I don't have financials done until February anyway, so mine's a 5 month on that end. But for you, that's a slower time for you, so that would be a great time to use it. And then attorney-wise,
You're gonna be busy, pull or jump.
there's always something.
Yeah, you're gonna,
So-
we're gonna do the county polar jump.
Yeah.
Do we wanna do this, the unemployment, real quick?
Let's do it right now.
I can, if you choose not to go into executive session, you just will not use names.
No, I wanna
Yep.
do it the regular way.
Okay.
I think everybody needs to.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we enter into executive session under Idaho Code 206-1D for consideration of records exempt from public disclosure.
Commissioner Hess?
Yep.
Commissioner Moses?